Hello, welcome to the Motorsport Review. I am your host, Perry Brown, and we're here to review the Brazilian Grand Prix. Yes, one of the best races, I think, of the season, it's safe to say, but we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of it. Why was it such a good race? And just how did Max Verstappen pull off that recovery? I'm delighted to say, joining me for this review, I have from Brazil, I'm going to start with you. I've got Louis. Louis, how are you doing?
Brilliant, because as you perfectly said, the best race is always here. Suck it, bitches.
Yeah, it's, to be fair, obviously we had a sprint race as well, extra action in Brazil. One of the best races, always delivers. It's a crying shame, and I said this in my sprint review, it's a crying shame that it is not getting a sprint race next year. What are they doing not giving it a sprint race? Anyway, my second guest, yes, we've got the Trinity together. It's Eddie as well. So Eddie, how are you doing?
I'm doing well as well, and I'm happy to report that the sprint race is actually going to Canada next year. So sorry about that, guys. But I do have to agree that Brazil is an amazing race, and it always delivers.
It does. So why can't it go to both? Anyway, so we're here to, as I say, review the Grand Prix. We have to start, of course, with qualifying. Eddie's face straight away, just like, oh yeah, we've got to talk about that part of Verstappen's weekend. Normally look for qualifying for just a couple of things that stand out besides Lando Norris's brilliant pole position. We have to talk about the drivers out in Q1. I mean, he still out-qualified Yuki Tsunoda, but Max Verstappen, 16th place. I hadn't seen it, but the messages you were giving me, Eddie, we're going straight to you. You were like, no, I just had to switch it off. I mean, he didn't have pace. It wasn't that there was a red flag at the wrong time. It wasn't that he went off or anything like that or lost time for any reason. It was just pure, didn't have the pace. Thoughts on 16th?
Yeah, I will admit I did not watch the entirety of qualifying because I was doing a side hustle, aka having a photo shoot. But I just opened my phone and I see my phone blowing up with messages of my friends totally devastated. So I was like, oh, no. Look up, and I see Max out of quali, and I closed my phone and I decided I will have peace of mind. I will not be watching qualifying. But it's the fact that, yes, it's the first time since what I think they were saying 2021, where it's him getting knocked out of Q1 out of pure pace. Never. Not out of bad luck, not out of like unfortunate events, just pure pace. And it was devastating and truly terrifying to see, honestly.
Yeah, Louis, I thought you had something to say on that. What was your thoughts on seeing that?
Just one thing that Eddie said is actually Max never got out on Q1 in his career. Never. I literally checked this because I saw on Instagram, I posted about it. Max only stayed in Q1 if he had mechanical issues, never on pure pace. He never stayed in Q1. So Max is a vet of almost a decade, no, well over a decade now, and never stayed in Q1, not once.
I mean, even last year he started 17th, and I had to look this up before the weekend. Said, well, how did he get there? How did that happen? And he actually qualified 12th with a 5-place penalty for changing his engine. So I was like, oh, so he went out in Q2, and there, of course, was due to a red flag. I think probably Stroll. I think it was
Stroll
in Q2, which denied him the chance at that time.
I remember the crowd chanting "F you, Stroll" all the time from the grandstand. The moment he beached the car on the center, he's like, "Yo, Stroll, go F yourself! Get the hell out!" Man, they were so screaming. I swear to God, I believe they muted the crowd. I swear to God, on the broadcast, they muted the crowd.
I
think
they
do that
did.
Quite a bit, don't they?
Because I don't remember this happening. And
well, yeah, I'm Brazilian, so obviously I understood.
I remember. I think this was during the race itself, because he basically beached it on the formation lap, wasn't it? And it was when he sort of spun down the straight, and then decided for whatever reason that the best way to get onto the track, rather than reversing or driving round the gravel track, was I'm just going to try and drive through it, and then got stuck. But anyway, that's last year. So into qualify. Yeah, obviously all a bit surprised to see Max there. Wasn't surprised to see they opted for the pit lane start. I think that was just sensible at that point. He, you know, he had a setup that would have been compromised for, will it rain tomorrow? Won't it rain tomorrow? Suddenly with that bit of extra knowledge, they can go, no, it's not raining. So we can put a fully optimized dry setup. Not that I think that was fully responsible for the comeback, but just that it was sensible. And a new power unit as well. And then we saw Hamilton out in Q2 as well. He didn't have the best weekend. It started in qualifying. Lou, I'm going to turn to you for that one. A resident of Brazil, of course, Lewis Hamilton, but just not a fine weekend. And it started from here. He seemed resigned, and he seems resigned every time he turns up at a racetrack at the moment, that he goes, we're just not at the races at the moment. I think they've designed a bit of a duff, and he's just ready to ditch this car.
Yeah, if we kind of look throughout the whole year, there's not one single one you say, that's the Hamilton we remember. There's not one bright spot this season. We can maybe take a brush last year because he won races with Mercedes, but there's not one bright spot apart from the quality in the sprint from China. You take that away from Hamilton's season, is atrocious. Is his worst season ever. There's no denying it. He doesn't look like himself. He doesn't talk like himself. He doesn't portray as a seven-time world champion. You think Lewis Hamilton, you think someone who's confident, who's sure of himself, and you just look at him, you feel like, is that the same guy we saw literally 3 to 4 years ago? He looks literally mentally checked out, like, I'm done, give me next year, if not, I'm retired. That's the vibe he's giving right now, which is a crying shame. He doesn't deserve this kind of, let's be honest, treatment and farewell tour with multiple air quotes. That's it.
I mean, we saw this a lot at Mercedes. I said all last year he was on like the farewell tour. You know, it was announced before the season began that he was going to be a Ferrari driver in 2025. So every time we saw him, it was a bit like, yeah, well, this is the Mercedes. Next year, I don't have to worry about it because I'm in a Ferrari and everything's going to be good. And look, they've got the second fastest, if not the fastest car at the end of the year. Everything's going to be rosy, and then they've done something. I am still doubting whether this rule set and the way that the floor generates downforce really caters to his driving style. I think not only is he hoping for next year's Ferrari, he's hoping for next year's regulations, and I wonder more and more about that. Eddie, do you agree with me? The answer is yes, obviously.
Yeah,
but your thoughts on this?
No, I have to agree in the sense that like the Hamilton that we see this year is not the Hamilton that we've seen in the previous years, and I think that pretty much both Ferrari drivers have given up on any hopes of even winning a race this season, if we can count the Chinese sprint as a race win. But other than that, it's been constantly Ferrari, like a drivers versus team battle of like battling against your own team. And I think both drivers, but Hamilton specifically, are banking on the new regulations next year, the new car, and like a whole new beginning for Ferrari, because this year it seems to be basically hopeless for both of them.
Yeah, I think I saw a quote just before coming on tonight that John Elkann, obviously head of Ferrari, even above the Formula One team, has basically said, time for both of our drivers to shut up now, do less talking and start delivering on track, which, I mean, that's a pretty bold thing. You know, you spent all your money on Hamilton, bringing him into this team with your guy, Charles Leclerc, and you're telling them, just please be a bit quieter. I mean, they're fighting words. They've got to deliver the car next year to go with those words, haven't they? So,
I hated that, seeing this post, because he made it seem as if Leclerc had decided to just, I don't know, take the weekend off to plan his wedding with Alex, or as if Lewis had decided to just like completely not show up. No, both drivers showed up and they did the best they could. And both of them, you would see they were extremely frustrated to have to stop the car. And both of them thought they could continue pushing. You saw Leclerc's radio when they would like stop the car. He said, F that. He wanted to continue. Those two events of them having to retire the car were events out of their control. So you can't base the driver's performances on this weekend, because this weekend has not been on Ferrari's side. And I think that this quote is incredibly tone deaf to like Ferrari's situation this season. You don't have like drivers that are not invested. You just don't have a good car. So why blame it on the drivers instead of the engineers and the team itself?
We know exactly what and whose fault is that. It's called Ferrari 499P. John Elkann simply loves the hypercar. He's there every time. He's using prima donna clauses. I mean, there's no one time he's not showing up on TV, them literally cussing him straight to hell. He's annoying. He's always just bragging, talking BS, just the typical Ferrari thing we already know. They talk too much, deliver nothing. He's the literal epitome of what Ferrari should not be. He took the realms from the, unfortunately, late great Sergio Marchionne, but man, what Marchionne did to that team, they were building on the right tracks. We saw in 2018, apart from Seb's collapse, the team was heading in a good place. But 2019 forwards is just inconsistency, and he's at the helm of it. So we can say Ferrari is a team that has no leadership and is being directed by the directors committee, and no one understands racing.
I said a few years ago that I think that the real problem with Ferrari is they expect to be at the top. If they're third, fourth, fifth, they're sort of looking around at everyone else but themselves and going, well, this is everyone else's fault. Like we should be first, and you have to put us there. And I said when Hamilton joined that what he's got to do is march in there and go, I'm a multiple champion. I've been champion, more recently than 2008. 2000. Did they win the constructors in 2008?
Yeah,
certainly the drivers in 2007. But yeah, same. Like I've won a championship much more recently than you. You have to listen to me. I'm the one that has the experience. Not many people in this team were here when they last won a championship. So listen to what I have to say, take it on board, see what Mercedes is doing differently and what you have to go and do. There's obviously the quote, isn't there, from Rush, where Nicky Lauda, the character, takes his helmet off and goes, "Oh, the car's
it's terrible."
Like to say it's very bad. I'm not saying the word, but he says it's crap, it's rubbish, and they go, "You can't say that. It's a Ferrari." And he goes, "But
it's an S box."
And someone needs to do that. Someone like Hamilton, if he's standing there in management meetings, in engineering meetings, saying, "I need this from the car," they should be going, "Okay, not." But actually, can we, so as I say, hopefully next year. But we've spoken a lot about Ferrari. I didn't think this was the Ferrari fans cast. My God, we're going to talk about the race. And straight away, we're going to get straight into Leclerc and how unlucky he is, because the first start goes off pretty well. I mean, Antonelli, brilliant to be in second. Norris gets away well. There's a few incidents that happen. So let's get into the first one, which was Stroll and Bortoleto, home hero. I mean, again, if Ferrari didn't have a wretched weekend, then Bortoleto, unfortunately, was the one that had a bit of a wretched weekend. And yeah, what did we think of that? I mean, this was the incident where Stroll, I think, crowded him off the track, and he was deemed to have done so. But what about yourselves, Eddie? Let's start with you. What did you think of this one?
I was absolutely gutted to see this happen. Like, the whole weekend for Bortoleto has been horrible, and I keep joking, it's the home race curse, because every time there has been a home race this season, it's been going horribly wrong. But this weekend is just terrible, and I was so sad to see it, because you could see Gabby literally crying with his family and being so sad, and it made me sad, because he's been doing really well the past few races, and the fact that he crashed was not his fault. So it's not like a technical error, it's just a stroke of bad luck. And yeah, I couldn't help but think, like, this is so sad for him. He's supposed to be the home hero. It's his first year being at home in Formula One, and this is what happens during the whole weekend. It was horrible to watch.
Yeah, what stood out for me was after the race. So when you're watching Sky after the race, they start to show all the interviews as they come in. They spoke to Lewis Hamilton, and he's in an empty pen because obviously he's out midway through the race, and he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna have my shower, have my engineering meeting, do my media duties and get home. Gabriel Bortoleto is in the background. So you got, I can't remember who they were talking to, but you had Piastri one side of him here, back to the camera. You had Gabby Bortoleto with about 3 drivers around him. So he's gone out on lap 1 and he's not decided I'm going to go home, obviously. He's still around and talking to other drivers and just making the most of it. I mean, I think he's signed, I'm pretty sure he's signed up again, isn't he? Next year he will be in the same outfit, the same car. Obviously it'll be Audi next year, not Sauber, but he's just living his best life. Even when things go wrong, he's just there and just saying, look, this is my city, this is my track, and just enjoying the atmosphere. So it was good to see him still there. And yeah, Louis, what's the feeling like around Gabriel Bortoletti, around Brazil? You say about home hero. Obviously he's put in some really good results, but I feel like they've been under the radar a lot, and I've been trying to sing his praises more than maybe the TV director would like to give sometimes. But is that feeling around that, you know, there's excitement, there's buzz about a Brazilian on the grid?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm a bit indifferent because having a Brazilian or not doesn't affect my joy on watching the sport, but actually helps having that plus of cheering someone that carries your flag, that represents your country all over the world. And man, there was a lot of people. There was constantly chorus of Bortoleto from the backstretch all the way to the pits, to the upper VIP passes, all the way to the Pinheirinho. Everybody was singing for Gabby. It was a phenomenal atmosphere at the track. You needed to be there to feel it. It was really nice. And everybody was gutted, not only when he crashed at the sprint, but what happened on the race. And once again, for some reason, something wrong happens in Brazil. Stroll was involved. And they were they didn't have any kind of mercy on Lance. Immediately, I saw on my cell phone every single Brazilian fan I knew of that was a fan of Formula One was immediately obliterating him, calling him the worst possible names you can imagine at the top of your head, just saying, get the F out, you Nepo baby. You go ahead and think everything else. My view of the incident was kind of a racing accident of some sorts because it's the first lap. Let's be honest, everybody's trying to find positions, trying to accommodate themselves and get in line and start the race. So there's not much of a rule that said you need to be here, I'm going to be here, I'm going to pass, you don't. It's not an Autorama. So
I think it was very unfortunate that it was Stroll on this one. I've seen a lot of criticism of him saying, well, he doesn't look in his mirrors enough. But I'm with you that you're fighting for the position. It's not somewhere typically you would think, well, I'm heading into this right-hander, this tight right-hander. I'm just going to make sure no one's on my left, because it's not where you expect someone to be. So I don't know what Bortoleto was kind of hoping to achieve by being there, if that makes sense. Yeah. Martin Brundle often talks about driving into a wedge, driving into a gap that's going to disappear. And that was a gap that was going to disappear. So I think Stroll came off this one wrong. I know we've spent a lot of this review already dissing and cussing Stroll, but I don't want to put that on him. It was just unfortunate, as you said, Eddie, that, you know, home hero goes out lap 1, having retired from the sprint in that crash at the end of it.
All I have to say for this is, as the Canadian fan, I'm so sorry.
Very on brand. Very on brand
of Lance Stroll in F1, because yes, I represent Lance Stroll. I am sorry. This does not represent all Canadians off track. Okay.
Fortunately,
very on brand saying sorry though.
You guys don't have the, let's say, the most pleasant repertoire of drivers in collective memory, like Stroll, Latifi.
Don't even start. I know. It's So I'm European now, guys.
Well, they can't all be Lando Norris, can they? You know, so
I knew
that was coming, wasn't it? So
we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
moving on then to a different Brit. So obviously at the end of lap 1, we also saw, we won't go into it too much, we've already spoken about Ferrari, but Hamilton just hitting the back of Colapinto was a bit of a, I mean, talk about someone having a bad season. That was just a silly accident to have on a straight, really. Sort of can't look anywhere else. I thought the penalty was harsh. Like, Colapinto drove off into the distance, had no ill effect of it, but he's already lost, Hamilton already lost his front wing. I was kind of like, well, what other penalty do you have to go and give him? I know you've both got weird looks on your face, so we're going to look into this now. Probably because you're thinking, oh, here's Perry with his Brit bias again, saying the Brit shouldn't have got a penalty. But
No,
I don't think Colapinto came off badly. I don't think Hamilton needed to be taught a lesson. Like, the lesson was, you're going to lose your front wing.
I think we needed a penalty just because the FIA would have been called inconsistent with the amount of penalties they gave for causing a collision. They were all the same throughout the race, and if Hamilton had been given like a less harsh penalty than everyone else, for example, Piastri, for example, Tsunoda, well, yes, people would have called out to Brit bias, and it would have been people outraged on the media, because, like, if there's one thing that the FIA has been criticized on this season, and we've talked about it multiple times on this podcast, it's their inconsistency in terms of rules and penalties. So I think, while yes, it was harsh, it was necessary, because a collision is a collision. No matter the outcome of it, it's still a collision. And yeah.
That's a good point. That is a good point. You're like, if Colapinto goes out of the race, it shouldn't be deemed that, oh, he needs to have a penalty. And likewise, if Colapinto's not ill affected at all, it shouldn't be treated differently. Louis, you also look disgusted by my insinuation that Lewis Hamilton should not have got a penalty. So you agree with Eddie on everything that's just been said, I'm guessing, there then?
Yeah, I agree. And at first, I really felt like, what is wrong with Hamilton? Like, it really looked like a idiotic move. Like, he was expecting Colapinto to just get out of the way. It didn't look like he moved to overtake him. It looks like the way it was shown to us, that he just stayed in line, which is obviously a bit of a bank curve going to the straight and Interlagos. So we don't necessarily pay attention if the driver is turning to get off of the draft effect and go for a move. But the way it was printed to me is he didn't move at all. He just went.
No, I think I know I've joked about the Brit bias, but listening to Martin in commentary, and he's watching the onboard, and then Colapinto turns left because the track goes left, and then he goes, "Oh yeah, it's the movement there. It's he jinked across." And I was like, he just followed the line. So yeah, I think Hamilton knew he wanted the inside, and he was just a bit too optimistic that Colapinto would just jump out of his way. So yeah, it's here or there. It obviously cost his race. I've heard it said that basically Ferrari knew a penalty was coming because they kept him out there until he got the penalty, not wanting it to affect Las Vegas. Just kept him out there. As soon as they got the penalty, they said, okay, now we'll retire the car. So
they don't need to pay that one way or another. Remember the new FIA rule: if you're not able to pay the penalty you received on a Grand Prix, you must pay on the next one. So in one way or another, he's still gonna have a penalty. Maybe worse now, because it might be a grid drop.
But no, that's the point. He did serve it in Brazil. That's
Oh,
the point. They kept him on track, knowing that the car was not going to make it to the end. They kept him out there. They served the penalty when he pitted, and then went, "Oh, I think we should retire the car now." So he served it. It's not going to loom over Las Vegas anymore as a result.
We're talking about the FIA, so they're gonna probably go like he didn't leave the pit stop to completely fulfill the penalty procedure, so
But
he's not
Tsunoda,
according to the rules.
but Tsunoda was getting another penalty for this, for not serving his penalty correctly, and I did not understand, because I thought I did not even see him go in the pits, so I don't know what happened.
We're going to get to that because I've got something to say.
Okay,
on that
good.
very thing. But yes, obviously we've had the safety car come out for the two sort of start collisions, if you like, and we get this restart. There was a sprint race. Sprint race had the red flag. Sorry, this was a safety car. I've got mixed the two. So we had a safety car and we had a restart, and we get straight into what everyone's talking about today for the next week, for the next 2 weeks until Las Vegas. We get the freeway collision, Antonelli, Piastri, and Leclerc, unfortunately, coming off the back of it. Again, Ferrari had no luck. It'd be bad luck at all anyway. So just the innocent bystander, perhaps, just putting it out there for later. But I'm going to hand over to you two. As a McLaren fan, I've got obviously no say in whether this was Piastri's fault or Antonelli's fault. I will give a shout out after this for why my decision has changed, but I'm going to start with Eddie because you look a lot more composed than Louis at the moment. It's completely my insinuation that Piastri could be at fault in any way for this. Eddie, talk us through what you thought of this decision. 10 seconds given to Piastri, right, wrong, what did you make of it?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. He absolutely deserved that penalty, and people
were
arguing.
You're not coming back on this podcast. Right. No, sorry. Carry on. Right.
Okay. So people were arguing online, and oh my God, there's something wrong. Okay. So people were arguing online, and I was looking at the replays and everything, and Kimi had that corner. Kimi was ahead, and I think it's rules in that if you are ahead, obviously Kimi should not have gotten a penalty. It was not his fault. He was hit by Piastri, and he was forced to hit into Charles. So obviously, yes, it's an unfortunate racing incident, but yes, it was completely okay for a penalty. It was completely warranted a penalty, and I don't have much more to say. It's sad.
Oh, I think we've lost Eddie perhaps at that point.
Deserved,
so
and
Louis, sorry, we lost you for a second, and then you came back. No, it's okay. It's okay. Carry on.
All I'm saying is, yes, it was totally deserved. With the replays, it was deserved, and I can't say much more than yes, I agree with the FIA's decision, and I would have been pretty pissed off if Piastri had not been penalized for this, because while you see him try to brake to avoid Kimi and locking up, and then ultimately leading to the collision, he still had nothing to do here. He should not have gone there. So that's my opinion.
Louis, you're going to agree with Eddie and get yourself banned as well. But go on, your say on it. Agree with that 10-second penalty.
I agree, because taking from the previous point, they need consistency. And differently from the Hamilton case, where kind of can be 50-50, on this one, it's clearly on the rule book. Piastri was the one driver in there that had no place in being on that corner. He was, let's be kind of a more by the lines here. He wasn't in a position that it was any way he could make the overtake. It was way optimistic. He locked up, unfortunately contacted Kimi that went into Charles. So by consequence, he got the penalty. It's fair in my eyes, but at the same time, his weekend as well, since Baku, has been god awful. He's not looked like himself in a very long time. And maybe trying to get terrain when he's losing too much, that maybe played on his head to make the move, but maybe wrong place, wrong time.
I stand as the voice of reason once again on this podcast, because you're obviously both wrong, and you won't be surprised to hear me say that, of course, 100% of the blame was with Charles Leclerc, because what he needed to do on the restart, Antonelli defends the middle of the track. Charles Leclerc goes, I'm going to go around the outside. And that's the worst place to try and overtake someone, because the regulations are awful, and he should have gone for the inside. He had a much better way past. If he goes up the inside, he passes Antonelli. Piastri accepts fourth place, and they will get through. So it's Charles Leclerc's fault. No, obviously.
Leclerc needed to actually activate his wings on the car to avoid Kimi and then safely get back on track. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely.
What?
That's the same logic.
He basically, I'm obviously being facetious. He went to the outside of the track, and he risks, when you go to the outside of a turn like that, you risk being caught by any kind of accident that happens on the inside. Right. So I think Charles goes left. Charles goes to the left of Antonelli, and he gets the inside. I think he makes the pass. the insinuation that Piastri didn't belong there. Now he's fully alongside Antonelli into the corner. I saw Chris Medland say this. Prior to the corner, he is alongside enough. So I fully get that. I'm going to give a shout out to Terry Widows at Coffee Corner Motorsport, because I read his review on this, and he goes, oh, it's not because he's out of control. Now, this is another argument as well. This is what I thought. I thought the locked wheel was like a smoking gun. He's locked up, therefore he's out of control. But he's not. He said, you read the FIA document, they say he's not alongside enough. And I went, well, of course he was. He was basically wheel to wheel. When you watch it back, although his left wheels are on the apex, Antonelli does sort of turn across, but he's not ahead. He's braked too much. And his front wheel basically almost collects his rear wheel. And that's why they gave him a penalty. He wasn't alongside enough. So what he needed to do, Piastri this is, let off the brakes and drive straight across the track. That's what he needed to do, because that's what the rules say. If he'd got to the apex first, not braked enough, he could drive completely off to the other side of the track, and Antonelli and Charles Leclerc would have had to disappear off the runoff wherever he's won the corner. Because the rules are the problem. The rules. I'm sick of saying it, but that's where I'm going. Piastri deserved the penalty. I'm not going to argue that. You're both right, because he didn't have the apex, but I think the rules are the problem. Look at these strange looks now. Look at the looks across this. Go on, Eddie. Go on. What did you think of that?
Do we have to mark the date on the calendar where Perry admits that McLaren can do something wrong?
Yes.
Wow. November 10th, guys.
It's sunny here. It's gonna rain. What the hell?
Pigs are flying. So yeah, I think, do you know what? McLaren came out and said in the immediate aftermath, was the penalty fair? And they just basically came out, we could see that going either way. And I said in our McLaren chat on WhatsApp, straight away, I said, to be fair, Antonelli's turned across him, and there are different people out there, journalists and panelists and opinions and pundits and all sorts of people saying they don't feel that Piastri should have got a penalty. A lot of people saying that Antonelli could have left more room as well. So it's one of those ones where it was like up in the air, but the rules are the problem. That's all I'm going to say on that. So we're moving on. So Piastri got his 10-second penalty. It did put him into P2, but already by this point, Verstappen was P13. He's making his way through. This brought out a VSC, of course, and he pits, gets off his hard tyres, and he's put mediums on. And at this stage, Sky Sports are losing it. Max Verstappen's going to win this race from here. All they kept telling us throughout, Max Verstappen's got this. Look at the gap to the lead. He's eating into it. And again, that same McLaren WhatsApp chat, they were like, he's in it. He's in this race. And I had smug face when I was sat there going, no, I think Lando's got this. But what a race from here. From this point forward, let's talk about the strategy element of this race. It was interesting. We had 2 stops, we had 1 stops, we had 3 stops. It was a brilliant race to watch. And Eddie, over to you as the Verstappen fan. I mean, you're watching him climb through the ranks. How early in the race did you think this is going to be a podium? Did you think he's fighting for a win, or what? Where were your the emotional roller coaster of watching this race? Where were you at with Max Verstappen through that fight?
So following qualifying, I was in a state of half desperation, half delusion of me saying, okay, he qualified 16th. He's now starting from the pits. Last year was similar, situation of despair. And he won. So I was like, maybe there's still some hope. I was trying to find signs that this race could be a pretty good race like last year. But truly I felt like I was going to be sick. My heart was dying watching this race. But it was just seeing him fly through the positions and gaining positions. I think I would say a third or fourth, I would say before half the race has passed, I was telling myself, okay, there could be hope at a podium. I don't see him having a win. It would probably take a miracle. I don't know, Lando's engine blowing up like it did in Zandvoort for him to like get a win. But at least a podium seems doable now, and this is incredible considering the weekend that Red Bull has been having, and like it hasn't been the best weekend, especially in qualifying. So I was like, you know what? I think a podium might be doable. And when he took the lead, I was like, okay, maybe a race win, but that would be like a bit far-fetched. But we can always hope, because if there's one thing that you learn about Max, and we've said it times and times again, but this year specifically, is you can never count him out. And I think that this race has proven more than any other races that he can actually pull up miracles like this in a car that is, like Niki Lauda said in the Rush movie, a S-Block.
Yeah, it was phenomenal watch. And I as I said, when he was leading, he had a 7-second lead over Norris, and the team come over the radio. Norris has just pitted maybe 5 laps before this, and they say, what do you think about the soft tires? And I'd called that about 10 laps early when he pitted to put those mediums on. I said, that's too far to go. Louis, I'm going to hand to you a question in a second. So Max Verstappen pits from first, puts soft tyres on. A, what do you think of that call? Do you think that was the right call? And B, where did you think he was going to get from there? I think he emerged on the track in 4th place. He was ahead of Piastri, behind both the Mercedes, and of course Norris in the lead.
It's kind of like you get caught in the middle thinking, Max is a good driver. He knows how to preserve his equipment. So you kind of then middle kind of juggling 2 alternatives. Can he actually be able to hold off a McLaren that is clearly a faster car with brand new tires going after him? Instead of being a race he can go on his own pace, it's like backing off and trying to preserve the tires as much as he can to try to defend the McLaren for maybe 1-2 laps, and then burn things off and even lost the podium for the Mercedes. Or he could go for the kind of the mentality we've seen from Red Bull this past couple of races, that just go for the attack, try something else, be the hunter. So going for the softs, I think, was the safest strategy, because Max had the pace for a podium. After the mid of the race forward, we kind of could realistically see him going for a podium. And putting soft tires on the driver that clearly knows how to drive that car, it's kind of giving a loaded weapon to a maniac. That's exactly what happened on the track. He was eating that track.
I think the one thing that prevented him from getting a win was the fact that he had to do an earlier pit stops due to a puncture. Had that puncture not happened, I think a win could have been doable with like a 2 pit stop strategy instead of a 3 pit stop strategy.
But even
it been interesting.
Yeah,
I think even then it would be a bit much. What I really liked about this race was it was like a, what do they call it? Like there's the undercut, but it was more like an overcut race.
Mm-hmm.
If you could go a little bit longer, just survive that rough period where everyone else got fresher tires, they're going 2 seconds lap quicker than you. If you could survive that, when you pit and emerge and your tires are now suddenly 2 laps younger, you then had, say, 4 tenths a lap after that. So suddenly, you know, if you've lost 2 seconds lap, 4 seconds, right? 10 laps time, going 4 tenths quicker, you've made the deficit back. So it was a race where you always wanted to be on fresher tires than your opponents. And I think that's why Red Bull kind of knew Max Verstappen in the lead as he was towards the end of the race. Those tires were too old to keep him there. That the rest of the field, yes, he had a 7-second buffer to Lando Norris, but he would have got that gap, and then he would have been at the wolves, you know, the mercy of the Mercedes guys to just blast through, because the DRS was so powerful. And I think a few people, I almost don't want to name them, but Tommy and Matty both said, why did they pit him? They should have just kept him out there and see what happened. And I was like, well, I know what would have happened. He would have finished 5th.
Yeah.
So I thought it was the right call. But yeah, talk us through that last stint, Eddie, on soft tires. That was a really impressive run, keeping those tires in the window for so long, going on the aggression rather than, I thought, he's just got to make them work and get to the end.
No, it was pretty impressive tire management, but also pretty impressive defending from Kimi there as well, because there were multiple times where he almost got passed, and he was incredible at keeping his cool and keeping Max right behind him, just a little bit outside of being passed. And I thought multiple times that Max was going to be able to pass Kimi, and it never happened. So yeah, those last few laps on the softs were amazing tire management and also amazing defending from Kimi. So it was pretty entertaining to watch.
Kimi's defending was brilliant, because we saw when he caught up to Russell, I thought Russell's going to make a meal of this. I mean, Max Verstappen, Russell, there's needle there. And Max just arrived and went by him. And we're like, okay, if he can do that with Antonelli, you know, Norris isn't that far ahead. Yes, the tyres wouldn't have been in the best window, but I thought if he can just arrive and get past him, but he didn't. Antonelli defended brilliantly. I don't know if Mercedes gave him different tools, but all weekend, I think Antonelli had almost like the perfect weekend if it hadn't been for Norris up the road, who was just putting seconds on him like it's no one's business. So yeah, Verstappen did a really good go of it, and Antonelli and Norris were perhaps the only two people deserving to be ahead of him, I think, on the day. So it was quite right that he took that position of Russell, who I think was just missing a little bit all weekend, to have Antonelli be that bit better than him. So we've got into the strategy, if you like, of this. I'd like to look back at that Tsunoda thing, and I said I had something to add to this. So comes up on the screen, Tsunoda has got he's under investigation for a collision with Stroll, apparently. And we're like, what? Okay, we haven't seen it. Then he gets a penalty, the 10-second penalty. We still haven't seen the collision. I believe he might have even served the penalty before this replay finally emerges later, that he's made contact with him on the hairpin. And then, as you said, I think it was Eddie, he serves the penalty, doesn't quite serve it, and we never see that. I think the TV direction was awful this weekend, has to be said. There was a moment in the sprint as well. I think it was Leclerc trying to pass Alonso, and he sets him up through turn 1. We follow him through turn 2. He lines him up through turn 3. He gets alongside, and then the window disappears. What? Right. Anyway, so good on the FIA making quick decisions, because we're constantly on at them for not making quick decisions, but they were on it. You know, the fact that they were getting decisions out quicker than TV could find the clips. But yeah, talk us through that 10-second penalty. Now, I've had my little rant about the FIA being quicker even than TV directors, but yes, we're saying he's your boy. He hit Stroll, but it was like the strangest of contacts, wasn't it?
God bless AI. I damn sure that was an AI call and not a human being incompetent from the FIA.
You reckon the AI, yeah, that they're employing Workday to make smarter, quicker AI decisions or something like that?
Absolutely, because they already used it once, the AI, to help them judge better situations. So I'm damn sure they're gonna fire every single steward on their room and just leave the AI. If the AI is gonna make those calls, because they were quick, like you pointed out, they were quick. It didn't take an eternity post what happened, so the penalty could be served.
I'm all, if it's going to speed it up, then I'm for it, because normally there was the one in the sprint, wasn't there? Ollie Behrman, Lawson, and they said we'll investigate that after the race. I'm like, that's not your freaking job. Just investigate it here and now. They collided. Just look into it. Yeah. So on the actual collision, Tsunoda just spinning round Lance Stroll as it was at the hairpin. Eddie, what was your thoughts on that collision?
I don't even remember the collision because of how long it took for us to see it on TV. Like, you just see, oh, there's a penalty, and then you don't show what's happening. And the TV direction had been improving in the past few races, but this weekend it was so weird. You would see like just the clips of the front where like nothing was happening. Meanwhile, you had just a little window on your left with like Max like making his way through the grid. And I'm like, why aren't you showing me this? He just passed like 4 drivers in like the past 10 seconds. Why can I see this? Why am I seeing like Norris flying in the front instead of seeing Max clawing his way through like the grid. I can't even remember that penalty because I don't remember seeing it long enough for me to remember what happened.
I didn't even remember they actually had a collision. I just remember that Yuki had a penalty. I didn't even remember that he crashed or spun or whatever the hell happened with him. I just saw the penalty. I was like, from where they got that from? Narnia?
No, exactly. It was like very out of like, it was obviously not out of context, but I was like, show me what's happening, because clearly we haven't seen any yellow flags, so there hasn't been any debris. It probably just was a like gentle tap, but like show me what happened so I can like get context clues, guys, context clues.
I mean, how often do we see a replay or see something live, and then you almost forget that it happened, and then it's the other way around, isn't it? The FIA go, oh, it's been noted. It's like, yeah, it was noted to us 10 laps ago. Of course it's been noted. And then suddenly the decision comes like 4 o'clock in the morning after the race when the FIA says, should we actually make a decision? So yeah, it was quite weird to see it this way around, that we're going, what collision? It was the most insane, like the gentlest little tap, like the very front of Tsunoda's wing to the very rear of Stroll's car. It looked like a nothing collision, and then suddenly Stroll is round, and you think, oh my god, that's just the most unfortunate thing, because before that it was such a good set. Tsunoda sort of caught out, I can't remember, Gasly or whoever it was that he had to sort of take avoiding action, and he gathers the car back together. You think he's almost done, and then the collision happens. I thought 10 seconds for that. Again, we're not basing it judged on that Stroll spun or didn't spin. It's just purely there was a collision. So if you're saying Hamilton's was fair, then 10 seconds for Tsunoda was fair, and we'll never see that pit stop, I'm getting the feeling. So we'll never know whether someone touched the car, what they might have done. Even talking to Lauren Mekies during the race, he seemed to say someone must have touched the bodywork. I don't know. So yeah, just the most bizarre incident, really, and the bizarre sort of scenario that we knew that it was under investigation before we knew something had even happened. I'm going to wrap up the race review by looking a bit further down the grid, and we had 7th place go across the line all the way down to 14th. So that's what, 7-8 cars all within DRS of each other. That finish between those guys was phenomenal coming across the line, and this was where I said the culmination of those guys on 1 stops, Agile trying to come through first of the 2 stops. But Louis, seeing those cars come through as close as they were together, that midfield battle, again, it's the middle. We all love the midfield, right? We don't just want to watch the racing at the front, but I think that was testament to, again, how good a racetrack this is, that multiple strategies, multiple races all come together at the end, and they're that close as they go across the line.
If we take everything into context, it seems like every time we go to Interlagos, there's like this perfect storm of events. The track was a bit dumb from the night because it rained a bit from here. It had a few thunderstorms and hurricanes during the night. It didn't properly hit the track, but some of the wind got into the track, and we saw some spots on wet around the track. So that kind of, I don't know if interfered with the temperature on the tires, then maybe in some spots they would get good heat and then they would just cool off all of a sudden. So maybe that played a hand, because the Ferrari didn't seem like it chose a different escalation of tires. It felt like the basic tires they use all year. And for some reason, the hards were god awful, and normally that's the tire everybody wants to ride in. But since practice, nobody liked the hard tires. They were focusing on medium and softs for a surprising effect. And during the race, it was just like you said, instead of an undercut race, was everybody trying to stay long, playing the long game, and just trying to make it work with what they had. And we had multiple stops. We've been begging so long, multiple stop races. So this can actually happen. Movement, excitement, and you get action at the edge of your seat, just thinking, he did this kind of strategy. Can those come from way back and catch him up? Well, what happened? And seeing that train of cars, okay, it was a DRS train, but at the same time, it wasn't, because everybody was passing each other. At some point, we saw movement into the Senna S's or into turn 4 going to the Cida del Lago. So it was every time there was a move, and it didn't feel like there was a DRS train nobody can pass. Everybody could pass. That's something that not every track can do. And for some reason, I don't know, that's not me saying as a Brazilian bias to the track. I don't know what happens. Interlagos is just providing good racing. There's not a dull race in Interlagos. And I dare you to pick a moment where a race was dull in here.
Not at all. No, it was a brilliant race, and as you say, a combination of different strategies coming together, and just it was such a good finish, wasn't it? At the end, for that reason. Yes, what I was going to say on this point, I've lost my train of thought, but yeah, they were all finishing in formation. They were all attacking one another. I was going to go to you, Eddie, and just point out Norris said as he crossed the line, obviously won by 10 seconds from Antonelli, and then obviously pretty much close behind was Max Verstappen. And he goes, "Oh, it was a bit close at the end," and I think people were alluding to that. The reason, or one of the reasons I brought this up, was because we saw such a compression of the race. I think this was, I mean, I haven't got stats to back this up, but I feel like in terms of strategy, in terms of race pace, this was one of the closest races we have ever seen in Formula One. As I say, not backed by facts or stats, just seeing that train of cars. To see Norris win by as much as 10 seconds, I'm going to put it to you, and I want your answer on this. I think it's as impressive as his 30-second win in Mexico.
I honestly can't really disagree with you on that, because it was a pretty close race. We've seen it with the midfield battles. We've seen it just with the front battles. The fact that like there was such like short gaps between the cars. It was impressive. It was, yes. I can't really disagree, because given the circumstances of the race, yes, it was pretty good for Norris to be able to maintain that gap. And yeah, I'm gonna be the bigger person and give you reason this time.
Allow me to be smug. That's what this is, Eddie. This is mental conditioning, because my next question is to both of you. Is your driver of the weekend? And Eddie, I'm going to go straight back to you. You get first pick. Who is your driver of the weekend?
Okay, so I technically have two, and I know both of you. I know both of you expect me to pick Max, but I will not.
I knew it.
I will have. I'm gonna have to pick Kimi.
I knew it.
He has been such an impressive driver this weekend.
It was near perfect.
P2 in qualifying, sprint qualifying, P2 in the sprint, P2 in actual qualifying, P2 in the race, his second podium ever as a rookie. And right now, I have my notes right here because I did not want to like miss that stats. He has 122 points so far in his rookie season. This is a lot. And he hasn't had the like best season in terms of like, it's been a roller coaster of emotions, and it's been a roller coaster of DNFs and bad races. But this weekend he proved why he is in Formula One at such a young age. He proved that he is able to handle having a 4-time world champion up his ass, like Russell said, for like the like last laps of the race. He proved that he is like he can have his place in Formula One even at such a young age, as young as 19 years old. And yeah, it was really, really refreshing to see him have a good weekend, given the like mid weekends that he's had in the past few races. And yeah, I just like hats off to him.
I mean, I think we're going to have a debate at the end of the season who was the best rookie, and I know a lot of people will overlook Antonelli because he's got the Mercedes, he's got the best car of all the rookies, and will look to the others because the others have been doing great as well.
Yeah,
I feel like that's a bit of a disservice to him. He has been doing a good job, and this weekend, as I say, Russell, as soon as he had Verstappen near him, almost just waved him through and went, "No, I'm not in your race." And then Antonelli defended so well. He attacked Lando Norris in the sprint as well. Maybe he learned from Norris, how to defend along that straight, and just thought, okay, I'm going to deploy that against Verstappen, and it worked. But yeah, he was at least the second best driver of the weekend. I had three. He was obviously one of them. He did have an incredibly strong weekend. He's had a very good season. and he's now catching Lewis Hamilton up in the point standing. That's something to watch. I know we've sort of torn Ferrari apart this episode, and they're not having a good season. But if Antonelli can get the better of Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari, now that is very impressive. And with that, Louis, I'm going to ask you for your driver of the weekend as well.
Oh boy. I would have gonna pick Kimi as well because it's just surprising. He needed that for his mentality, for his emotional status, for the boost of himself to perform better. He needed this kind of weekend. It was long overdue. We know Kimi's talent, but he had such a bad luck for months. It's not just a few races, it's months. He didn't look like a driver. He didn't look like himself. He was not like humble and just saying like, I need to work this on this, but in rest I'm good. It was just like he's defeated. He didn't know what he was doing wrong when he felt he was doing everything right. He needed a weekend and everything clicked. This was the weekend for him. And I hope this is kind of the platform he can build.
Do you know what else I think as well that's slightly unfair is that people were looking at George Russell and going, well, he's not in his race. He's not near him. And I think more than any other driver, George Russell has just been on podiums and been in race wins when that car probably isn't in that fight all the time. You know, Russell's had a very understatedly brilliant season, I think, for where he is. So to put Antonelli alongside that in his, again, debut season, I think it's unfair. But Louis, you can't have Kimi Antonelli as your driver of the day, unfortunately. It was a very good argument, but Eddie's already taken it. So you could have just absolutely blown Eddie's argument out of the water, but you got to pick someone else, my friend. You got to go for someone else.
Well, then I'm going to steal your thunder. I'm going to take Lando.
You've gone for the right choice. Please tell us, please, so I don't have to, because everyone will just go, the McLaren fan, pick the McLaren driver. Please tell us exactly, what did Lando Norris get right this weekend?
You know that recently I've been the greatest critic in terms of Lando, from his mentality, from his driving, from his posture. And lately, he did, I think, the best thing possible. That is, shut up his critics by performing. That's exactly what he's been doing for the past couple of races. And this was, dare I say, his best drive, considering Mexico. I think this is his best drive the whole season. He didn't lack confidence in any point. He felt like he knew exactly what he needed to be done, how to drive. He heard the strategies from the others, but it didn't seem to bother him. He was focused on race. So in terms of pure drive and capacity, this is probably the most picture-perfect Lando Norris we saw the whole year.
I mean, even when the McLaren was at its best, it would turn up on a sprint weekend and they wouldn't hit the ground running quite like Red Bull, Verstappen seem to be able to do. That's why Verstappen's won something like 13 sprint races. And then you've got a number of drivers on 2 wins. Norris now on 3 sprint wins. There's a good reason for that. Red Bull turn up and they just have that hour and they dial it in and they know how to do sprint races. So as I say, the McLaren, even its best, doesn't win sprint races easily. And that's what he did. He turned up. He P1 in practice, P1 in the sprint, P1 in sprint qualify. You know, every session, almost Q1, Q2, Q3,
like
unfazed,
like
a machine.
It was incredible.
And hopefully quiet. There was still some booing. I still didn't like that, obviously, after the race. But
expected that. If you kind of look back, I don't want to say core F1 fans, I don't want to play bases here, but we know that kind of the most casual fans, they don't like the overall archetype of the winningest driver, the most dominant performance getting that reward. Because if we look at the race without analyzing, what was the expectation? What was the storyline? Can Max win? Will he win? That was the expectation, not the reality. We know that was a possibility, but not a reality. Reality was most likely Lando would win anyways. So we already had that kind of knowledge. But for the casuals, they were expecting something else. And this season, we have the McLaren dominance, which we can't even say is that much of a dominance, to be honest, apart from the constructors. It doesn't feel like it. But drivers that have some sort of domination, that sort of dynasty period, fans don't like it. They didn't like it with Vettel. They didn't like it with Lewis. They didn't like it with Max. So if either Oscar or Lando have one, they ain't gonna like it either. They don't appreciate dynasties when they are happening only posthumously.
I've said all of this before. I used to despise Schumacher. Used to despise Schumacher turning up winning races until about 2006, and then it was all Alonso and watching him win. And suddenly I was like, oh no! Actually, in 2006, I was like, I want Schumacher to do this, because what a storyline if he wins his final season before he retires. That would be incredible. Obviously, we know Alonso did it instead, took his second title. So yeah, I agree. It's not until after the dynasty ends and the winning ends that people appreciate it. So I'm not going to say a driver of the weekend. I'm just not going, because I
go on.
You
opinion. You put the rules for us. We're gonna make you follow the rules. Go ahead, say it. The Dutch Lions, say it. Say it.
He was, after the two others that I can't say, was the third best. I mean, you have to mark him down for qualifying. That's why I asked driver of the weekend. Verstappen didn't have the best Saturday. Sprint race, was he there? Sprint qualifying, was he there? But that recovery from the pit lane to third has to take some recognition. So I will have to say, won't I, Verstappen? Next question is highlight of the weekend. Louis, you get first say on that.
Just a little question like that. How many drivers have accomplished getting from pit lane to podium?
4.
Okay, there you have
all of them in this century. From 2009 to this year, only 4.
Okay.
It was Jarno Trulli with Toyota, 2009, Sebastian Vettel with Red Bull, 2012 in Abu Dhabi, Hamilton, 2014 with Hungary and Mercedes, and now Max with Red Bull.
We should get you on Grill the Grid. You're good.
I was going to say, if there's ever a pub quiz, Louis, you're on my team. But so we need to wrap this up. So I need to get through highlight of the weekend for you guys. So Louis, you get first pick because Eddie, you got first driver. So have a think, Eddie. I'm coming to you in a second. Louis, what was your highlight of this race weekend?
Jesus. It's probably not going to be the biggest highlight for everybody, but the terrifying crash for Bortoleto, that was really scary. And especially seeing the steering column going off of his car, that was like, oh my God, I hope he's okay.
I said that in my sprint review. It's always scary when you see a double crash like that, because the crash structure is all meant to deal with one collision. When they put through the paces and then a second collision happens, you get a bit like, you start to breathe through your teeth, because you're like, has the crash structure that's going to potentially save his life, is it still intact? Is it still in good condition for that second hit? So no, very, very grateful that Bortoleto was able to race, or certainly a little bit on Sunday. So yeah, I'd go with that as well, surviving and coming out of such a big crash and immediately being like, I'm okay. So yeah, safety in Formula One once again. Eddie, highlight of the weekend then.
Honestly, I think I'm going to have to...
He's Mars. Let him suffer in the end.
So I think I'm going to have to say, seeing an Alpine, Pierre Gasly, back in the points.
Yo, I forgot about that.
That's exactly why I'm saying that, because I am a casual Gasly fan. I think he's an amazing driver who is in a team that...
I am. I'm a casual Alpine fan, and I forgot about that.
I am not a casual Alpine fan, because I have my reasons, which I'm not going to name, because I want to try to stay as impartial as possible.
Is it because they're 10th in the constructors?
I knew it. I was gonna say it has a name and surname, and his name is Fabio Briatore.
Exactly.
So Pierre Gasly.
So Pierre Gasly coming back in the points after months, because the last time he got points was in Belgium, and this weekend.
That long?
Yeah. So this weekend, seeing him come back in the points after a drought of months, it was really, really nice to say. It felt great. It felt good for the car. It felt good for the team. It felt good for him. And as a casual Gasly fan, it felt good, because I like seeing the drivers that I like happy. So yeah, I'm gonna have to say hats off to Gasly. It was not an easy race, and he many times during the race I thought he would not make it to the points, but he did, and he proved why he has his spot in F1. Does he deserve a better team? Absolutely, but he's making the most out of this car, and I think that this weekend it finally paid off.
It's a very good shout. We're gonna have to look more. I always feel guilty that I focus on the battle at the front. There are other podcasts out there focused on the midfield for that very reason, that there's such great racing. That's why I wanted to highlight earlier on the great racing that we saw in the middle of the pack. You know, that one-stop call from Liam Lawson and Nico Hulkenberg to put themselves in that mix, and then Hadjar almost being disappointed with the fact he couldn't catch them and had started better, but his two-stop didn't quite match. There's brilliant racing in the midfield, and again, TV directors, please show it. We want to see it. We're not just interested in who's going to.
I love rooting for underdogs because you can celebrate these small victories like that. Just like having V-Carb get double points. It's like, oh wow, it's not a podium, but for a team that is not considered a front-of-field team, it's wonderful.
Yeah. And I'll just remind you, at one point, that as a McLaren fan, a double finish, not less a double start, sometimes was like considered a good weekend.
Yeah.
Like, if we got in the points, we would celebrate.
I remember the McLaren Honda years, and dare I say, you're probably gonna say you are not a human being. I actually used to like the McLaren Honda years.
Well, we had Alonso, didn't we? Is that part of it?
And it had Jenson Button as well.
It was a good lineup. It was a good lineup that didn't befit the car we gave them. Anyway, that's for another day. So my highlight of the weekend was Pirelli. So the last two races, we had this experiment, step grade, tyres above, and instead we got these two races where the experiment didn't work. And I did give them credit, said I like that they're doing something, but here I think they got it right. They just said, let's play it safe. 3 tyres, middle of the pack. I think they were a grade harder than they went last year. Not that we ever really saw that play out, obviously, with a wet race, but they got it right. And they just said, you know, we're not going to play around. Just artificially, they've tried to create these strategy races. And as I say, I was so involved in this one, just watching 3-stop, 2-stop, 1-stop. People try different things, and it being the Pirelli tyres at the end of the day that gave them the performance, and gave them the race pace, and gave them the position. So I have to give a shout out to Pirelli on that front. So that wraps up our review of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Louis, you got one more thing to say. Was it something nice about McLaren?
Actually, I was thinking, what would be the biggest disappointment of the weekend for you guys? I have mine.
Oh. Well, do tell, because I need to think about mine.
Mine will be Piastri.
Oh, why? Louis, we were going to end on such a positive note. I was going to say the points gap, though. Norris, 24 points over Piastri. That's the most it's been all season, even as it was after Australia, obviously, with Norris getting the win and Piastri getting 9th. Since then, Piastri's clawed it back, got ahead. He was at 1 point more than a race ahead of Norris, and now he's 24 points behind, 3 to go at sprint. I think it's a bit much. Max Verstappen, we're saying there's 3 in this, 49 points behind. And before we went live, I said, well, if he comes away from Vegas 58 behind, I don't think he will. I don't think he's going to not score the points to stay in the fight. But I think by Qatar, that might be over. But 49 points now behind Norris. So, yeah, I kind of feel like this race, this weekend, kind of put the championship to bed a little bit. But we'll see. If Las Vegas
never say
Eddie's sort of expecting, then
look, we don't want to overlook Max, but things are looking a bit grim for him this past 2 races. But maybe Vegas will be the turnaround. But at the same time, Vegas is like the wild card of the whole season. It's barely, I think it's the track with the least amount of downforce, even compared to Monza. And it's a street track. I don't think
it's that low, but it's quite low. And the fact that it's a street track, the track doesn't offer much grip, and it's cold in the middle of the night. So yeah, it'd be interesting. But that's for 2 weeks' time when we'll be back. Subtly phasing out of this one. So yes, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Before that, next week we're going to give NASCAR another go. Obviously, they had their finale in Phoenix, and I mean, there's a lot to discuss about NASCAR. There's a lot to get into, so we will give it another go, because we didn't particularly like it, myself and Ray, when we watched it before. So we're going to give it another chance. So tune in next week. If you're into NASCAR and you want to have a say, then by all means, message, comment, tell us what we should be watching. But the full race is available on YouTube.
There.
So, so NASCAR next weekend. Until then, thank you for watching. Thank you, Louis. Thank you, Eddie, for coming and causing chaos and
our pleasure.
Being a little bit nice about Norris.
Greatest pleasure.
It's been a pleasure as always, and yeah, I'm excited to come back on the show. And honestly, we were talking about it. If by any chance the championship gets decided in either Qatar or Abu Dhabi, we should do a 4-way podcast. 2 McLaren fans versus 2 non-McLaren fans. This would be so amazing, so chaotic, so perfect.
I know a few, and I'll try and rope Keith in. Obviously, he's doing things with the Papaya Pod as well. But I'll say to him, "Hey, remember your roots and getting back on here." Obviously, did the Mexico review with me as well.
It would be nice if we could actually get the others as well, because maybe, just who knows, maybe if they is Carnage, let Carnage be ruined.
But it'd be good papaya coloured carnage on our front. So with that, I'm gonna say have a very good evening. Thank you very much for listening, for getting involved. Follow, do all the usual social media things. Follow us, turn those notifications on, comment, tell us why Eddie was so wrong about Piastri. Tell me why Louis really needs to move on from Alonso, and tell me why I was so right that it was Charles Leclerc's fault that they had collided on that restart. But in the meantime, thank you very much for listening, and see you spoon.